What I'm about to tell you was never said in any ordinary therapist's office, because the truth that an experienced psychologist keeps locked away only surfaces when the barrier between technique and soul finally breaks. He confessed that most people who seek help aren't sick. They're in a state of deep exhaustion from trying to sustain a life that no longer belongs to them. There's a pattern almost everyone overlooks, a silent mechanism that drains your energy and keeps the doors you're desperately trying to open firmly shut. You're not the first to feel that, despite all your effort, something essential is still missing. I came to tell you what that is, because the confession that professional made about the emptiness his patients carry is the key you need to understand your own journey. Stay with me, because right now we're establishing a contract of transparency. By the end of this conversation, you will recognize the 4 specific signs that have been appearing in your life and understand exactly what they mean for your soul. You will uncover the hidden diagnosis of why you feel stuck even when you're doing everything right. And before we finish, there's a specific declaration about who you are that will serve as a dividing line for your path from this moment forward. I believe that's why this recognition reached you today. You've been feeling a restlessness without a name, an urgency that follows you even when you're still. You notice that conversations that once felt natural now ring hollow, as if you're speaking from a distant shore. Your nights have been marked by constant waking, almost always at the same interval, as if there's a call or an internal clock resetting your rhythm. And more than that, you've been seeing sequences of numbers repeating in unusual places, license plates, receipts, clocks, as if the environment itself is trying to send you a code. These aren't problems to be solved. They're confirmations that your system is being calibrated for something greater. Your insomnia isn't a flaw, it's an invitation. Your sense of distance from those around you isn't selfishness, it's alignment. Attention! It seems like out of nowhere, everything in your life started going wrong at the same time. Your mind won't shut off, the problems keep piling up, and you're left wondering why right now. But what if it isn't random? The greatest battle begins when God is shaping you, not abandoning you. And that is exactly why this was created. The 7 principles of C.S. Lewis for the chosen. 7 principles to help you recognize the subtle detour, the noise, the distraction, and stand firm. And you are not alone. Many who were sinking have risen back to their feet. Your turn is now. So don't wait for the noise to get louder. Click the link in the comments or in the description and stand firm today. Breathe deeply with me now. Let this revelation settle into the part of you that has waited the longest for this confirmation. If at least one of these signs touched you, if your shoulders lowered at some point while I named these experiences, type the number 333 in the comments. Your fingers typing those numbers are your spirit saying yes to this alignment. It's the smallest agreement, but it's a real agreement with your truth. Type 333 and come back to me. What an experienced psychologist would confess, if he could look beyond the walls of his office, is that your current exhaustion doesn't come from overwork, but from a constant effort to control what isn't yours. You've been operating under the silent belief that if you try a little harder, if you anticipate every obstacle, if you mold yourself flawlessly to meet others' expectations, the door will finally open. That's the hidden pattern. It's a gear spinning in emptiness, consuming your life force to maintain a scene that has already lost its purpose. You feel tired because you're trying to hold ropes that aren't attached to anything. You're performing for an audience that was never really paying attention. But there's a much deeper layer beneath this pattern. Imagine a garden that never received sunlight, where roots grew tangled in the dark, searching for water that never came. For years, your life was that underground courtyard. You learned to survive in the twilight, to move in silence, to protect yourself from the light, because the light seemed to demand a surrender you weren't ready to offer. What you call pain or emptiness is actually just the soil being turned over, so the roots can finally rise. The discomfort you feel now isn't a breakdown, it's preparation. The storm you faced in the past only served to steady the deck of your life now, firm enough to bear what comes, if something inside you just sealed itself. If the image of that garden or that root fell into a place of recognition you can't explain, type the words I see in the comments. Let that recognition anchor where it just landed. The act of typing those words makes the witness permanent in your own record, solidifying what was revealed. Type it and come back to me. Now that you see the root of the problem, the solution no longer requires effort. You don't need to build a new version of yourself. You only need to unlearn resistance. The solution is a return, a softening. Think of it as the stewardship of someone who cares for a treasure that doesn't belong to them. You simply open your hands. Stop trying to force circumstances to bend to your will. When you release control, you allow the current to carry you to where you were always meant to be. Your only practice from today on is the silence of the morning. Reserve a single moment, just one, to not ask, not plan, not search for answers. Just breathe and acknowledge that you are home, even while you're still on the way. Life isn't a battle to be won, it's a frequency to be inhabited. Everything you've been seeking has been seeking you with the same intensity, but your restlessness was creating noise that prevented the meeting. Now that noise is fading. Let the silence do the rest of the work. If something in this message confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your wordless amen. Not as an audience metric, but as a gesture of agreement, a silent recognition that what was named here was named correctly. There is a truth that needs no explanation to be understood, and that gesture is your seal that you have understood. Sit with this feeling for a moment, letting the weight of the expectations you carried continue to lose its strength. Breathe deeply, because there is someone in your life who needs exactly this message right now. Someone who has been trying harder than everyone around them and still sees the door stay closed day after day. Someone who walks silently in a way no one around them can explain, carrying an invisible weight that no one else sees. That person's face just appeared in your mind as I spoke, didn't it? Send this content to them, not as a casual recommendation, but as a necessary delivery. Just as this revelation reached you by a warning that didn't come from the outer world, it needs to reach someone who's waiting for a sign that they're not going crazy, only awakening. Before this ends, type the words, "I am the chosen one," in the comments. Not as a wish, not as a distant hope, but as a final confirmation. The agreement that has been forming in silence between heaven and your hearing is a pact you will live by for the rest of this season. Type slowly, feeling each letter, letting your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. What an experienced psychologist confessed on June 30th isn't about pathology, but about the exhaustion of a soul desperately trying to translate the invisible into a language the world understands. You've felt that. You've been waking up in the middle of the night, exactly at 3 a.m, with a racing heart and a clarity that, when the sun rises, seems to dissolve into routine. You look at your conversations, and they sound like echoes in a desert. You notice numbers repeating, sequences that insist on appearing on the clock, on a car's license plate, on a forgotten receipt. These are signs that your frequency has shifted, but you're still trying to inhabit the old place. It's like wearing shoes that have become too small. The pain isn't a lack of faith, it's compressed growth. It's the smallest agreement, but it's real. The diagnosis that psychologists confided is what I call spiritual imposter fatigue. You've spent your life pulling ropes that aren't attached to anything. You try to control the final outcome of situations that should have already been surrendered. It's the effort of someone trying to be their own providence. You perform for an audience that was never paying attention, seeking validation from people who can barely see themselves. And beneath all this, there's an inherited survival pattern. You learned to be strong so no one would have to worry about you. But that strength became an armor that prevents the universe's warmth from reaching your chest. Imagine now an underground garden. Beneath the dry soil of your current routine, there's a vast, ancient, perfectly hydrated root system that you simply stopped watering with your attention. You look at the surface and see packed earth, see aridity, see what seems like a failed harvest. But the psychologist confessed that what you call a desert is actually a period of deep rooting. The pain you feel when things don't fit is just the sound of a root breaking through a layer of soil that no longer serves. If something inside you just sealed itself, if the image of that garden fell into a place you can't explain, type the words I see in the comments. Let the recognition seal where it just landed. Type it and come back to me. The solution doesn't lie in accumulating more knowledge or finding a new life strategy. The solution is the return. It's unlearning the need to have a plan for every step. Your spirit doesn't need a GPS. It needs an environment where it can breathe. Practice the morning seal, which is simply being silent for 1 minute before touching any device, just reaffirming your presence. Not as a metric, but as an agreement that what was named here was named correctly. From now on, you stop fighting the current and start floating in the direction life naturally pushes you. You're not losing control, you're finally letting go of what was never yours. There is someone in your life who needs exactly this message now. Someone who has been trying harder than everyone around them and still sees the door remain closed. Someone who walks silently in a way no one around them can explain. Someone whose eyes carry an exhaustion that even rest can't cure. That face that just appeared in your mind as I spoke isn't a coincidence. That person's image surfaced because they are exactly on the same threshold of recognition you just crossed. Send this to them. Not as a recommendation, but as a delivery, a warning that they aren't walking alone through what seems like an emotional desert, but are actually being prepared for something that doesn't yet have a name. Stay with me now, because what comes next is the layer beneath the layer. You've been operating under the false premise that your value is tied to your ability to keep everything running. The psychologist confessed in a moment of rare openness that the heaviest burden people carry isn't the load itself, but the fear that if they stop holding it, everything will collapse. But the truth is that collapse is often the beginning of real construction. What you call crisis is the old system losing its foundation because it can no longer contain the size of what you've become. Breathe deeply with me. Let it settle into the part of you that has waited longest to hear this. You've been living as if the sun depends on your effort to rise, as if life around you is a theater where you alone are responsible for ensuring the curtains never fall. That's a miscalculation that consumes your spirit and dries your vitality. But the change doesn't require monumental effort. It only requires you to admit that your resistance has been your prison. The recognition that you aren't the owner of destiny, only an attentive passenger, is what returns peace to your days. Not as a wish, not as a hope, but as a confirmation that the agreement forming in silence between heaven and your hearing is an agreement you will live by for the rest of this season. Type slowly. Let your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. What I heard from a renowned psychologist this Tuesday changed how I see each of you. He wasn't talking about pathology. He was talking about a silent confession that crosses offices and living rooms, a truth most ignore out of fear of what it would reveal about their own existence. He confessed that behind every exhausted person who sits in his chair, there's an invisible pattern. A structure that sustains the effort but actually serves only as a facade for a pain no one dares to name. You've been trying harder than the people around you, and yet the door never seems to open the way it should. There's a clear reason for that, and you will now understand why your attempt to maintain control has been your biggest block. By the end of this conversation, you will recognize the 4 signs that have been emerging in your life. Understand the hidden diagnosis the psychologist revealed about your pattern of exhaustion, and receive the declaration that explains why this message found you at this precise moment. Notice the waves that have been invading your daily life. You feel a restlessness without a name, an urgency that doesn't translate into completed tasks, but remains as a weight in your chest. Conversations with people who were once essential now feel superficial, almost as if you're speaking a different language. Insomnia has been your companion, waking you at the same pattern, a specific hour that seems like an invitation to a silence you don't know how to fill. And the signs multiply in numbers that appear on your screen, on the clock, on signs you ignore, but your soul registers as a constant attempt at communication. It's the smallest agreement, but it's absolutely real. The diagnosis that psychologists brought is that you don't suffer from lack of ability, but from chronic fatigue, from trying to maintain a control that was never yours. You operate as if you're pulling ropes that aren't attached to anything. It's energy wasted on an empty stage, where you perform perfectly for an audience that was never there. You confuse faithfulness with exhaustion, believing that if you stop carrying the world will collapse. But deep down, you already know that the collapse you fear so much is actually the only way you can finally be free. There's a part of your essence that was planted under the earth, hidden from the elements, protected by silence, waiting for a light that doesn't come from the sun, but from within. You spent years trying to make that seed grow on the cold concrete of the surface, forcing results, demanding flowers where there was only shadow. Your pain isn't a wrong turn, it's a calibration. It's the system trying to warn you that you're trying to live in the wrong layer. You were shaped by expectations that weren't yours, by voices that told you a human being's worth is measured by their resistance to wait. But that underground garden doesn't need effort, it needs recognition. The soil is ready, the water is available, and your only task is to stop digging outward and allow what's inside to gain space to sprout. If something inside you just sealed itself, if that garden metaphor fell into a place you couldn't explain, type the words "I see" in the comments. Let that recognition anchor where it just landed. Type it and come back to me. The solution isn't to do more. The solution is the return. It's unlearning haste, softening the rigidity you built to defend yourself from a world that never understood your sensitivity. It's as if you've spent your whole life wearing armor that now only prevents you from feeling the warmth of what's real. There's no need to build a new life. You only need to release the one you're holding so tightly. The invitation is to sit in the center of that garden you neglected, to simply breathe and allow alignment to happen naturally. If something in this exchange confirmed what your spirit already knew, let your like be your wordless amen. It's not about metrics. It's about agreeing that what was named here was named with truth. It's a silent gesture from someone who finally feels understood. There is someone in your life who needs this clarity right now, that person you observe, who tries in a way no one notices, who carries a heavy silence and seems to always be searching for a door that never opens. That person whose face just appeared in your mind as I described the pattern of exhaustion. Send this to them, not as advice, but as a testimony, just as it reached you, as a warning that their tiredness has a name and rest is available. What you feel isn't a character flaw, nor a lack of ability to handle life's demands. What you experience is the effect of a structure designed so that you would never stop running. The psychologist who confessed this pattern, in a moment of absolute transparency, revealed that the biggest secret they hide from you is that your exhaustion doesn't come from work, but from resistance to accepting that you no longer need to prove your worth to anyone. You spent decades building defenses, anticipating criticism, silencing your own impulses to fit expectations that weren't even yours. It's as if there's a survival frequency you adopted when you were very young, and that frequency is still running in the background, consuming your life force, even though the danger that triggered it disappeared long ago. You're operating on the autopilot of a system that no longer serves the person you've become. The fear of stopping is actually the fear of facing the silence, where the answers you seek can finally be heard. That's why, even in moments of rest, your mind keeps racing, planning, correcting, organizing things that don't depend solely on you. There's a part of your essence that is tired of carrying the weight of the world, while your soul begs for a moment of real pause. The reframing here is essential. Your tiredness is actually the evidence that your internal compass is trying to take you in a different direction from the one your life has been following. Don't ignore that feeling of weight, because it's your body warning you that the route needs to change. Consider the metaphor of a plant growing in a pot that is too small. The roots start circling the space, limited, compressed, unable to reach the nutrient in the deeper layers of soil. You have lived exactly like that, contained by the frame of circumstances, believing that limited space was all there was. The pain you feel is the effort of those roots trying to break the pot, seeking soil where they can expand without fear. What you call disorder is the beginning of your liberation. The psychologist pointed out with great precision that human beings have an incredible capacity to adapt to suffering, making it familiar and sometimes even comfortable to avoid facing the unknown that exists in freedom. But the time for accommodation is over. You don't need more tools, more effort, or more strategies to try to fix what isn't broken. You only need to allow the light to reach that underground garden you've hidden for so many years. It is in this place, away from the eyes of others, that your true strength regenerates. By releasing control, you are not giving up. You are finally taking command of your own energy. The pieces of your journey begin to fit together when you stop forcing the fit. Type slowly, letting your fingers do what your spirit is already doing. Stop. Whatever you're doing right now, stop. This Tuesday, something happened in a conversation that changed everything you thought you knew about your own tiredness. A psychologist with over 30 years of practice confessed something he rarely says out loud. Most people who come to him aren't sick, they're just trying to survive in a system designed to keep them from ever discovering who they really are. There's a confession about the pattern most ignore, and you're going to hear it now. What I'm about to say isn't for everyone. It's for you, who feels that the door has been closed for far too long. By the end, you will recognize the 4 clear signs your life has been emitting. You will understand the hidden diagnosis about that emptiness you carry. And before it ends, we will have a declaration that will seal your understanding of this moment. You aren't here by accident. First, the signs. You've been waking up systematically at 3 in the morning without a logical reason, your mind already in high gear, as if someone called you to an invisible appointment. Conversations around you sound increasingly distant, empty, almost like white noise that no longer reaches you. You notice repeated numbers in mundane places and a constant feeling that something is about to change, but nothing visible happens. It's the smallest agreement, but it's real. The diagnosis is simple, though it hurts to hear. You've been operating under imposter fatigue. You tried to control the external to validate the internal, but the audience you're performing for was never really paying attention. You pull ropes that aren't attached to anything. It's useless effort that drains your soul. Breathe deeply with me. Imagine an underground garden. You spent decades planting seeds in soil that wasn't yours, trying to make something bloom that had no roots in your truth. The pain you feel isn't a mistake. It's your soul demanding that you stop watering stones. Type it and come back to me. The solution isn't to do more. It's to let go. It's the return to the silence where your essence dwells. Send this to that person, not as a recommendation, but as a delivery. You are committed, you are sent, you are being led. Right now, all over the world, other people are receiving this same recognition. You are part of something that isn't announced with noise, and that's exactly why it's real. Attention. It seems like out of nowhere, everything in your life started going wrong at the same time. Your mind won't shut off, the problems keep piling up, and you're left wondering why right now. But what if it isn't random? The greatest battle begins when God is shaping you, not abandoning you. And that is exactly why this was created. The 7 principles of C.S. Lewis for the chosen. 7 principles to help you recognize the subtle detour, the noise, the distraction, and stand firm. And you are not alone. Many who were sinking have risen back to their feet. Your turn is now. So don't wait for the noise to get louder. Click the link in the comments or in the description and stand firm today.